How are you?
Hey, great. Thank you. Great to be here.
Nice to have you. How are you feeling getting this out after all this time?
Yeah, it's a mixture of feelings. It's mostly excitement, I guess. It almost feels like you're letting something go, and that's kind of a weird feeling, something you've held on to emotionally for so long.
How has the holding on of it, like the thinking of it, the contemplating of it for so long impacted the record, you think?
Uh, well, I mean, we definitely took a while to put this record together, and that wasn't completely intentional. But I think the majority of the work was done in the last couple of years, and we actually had the record pretty much done right when the pandemic hit. And in a strange way, it afforded us this extra time to just take one last look. And we kind of tweaked songs a little bit and remixed some stuff. And we actually, in hindsight, we brought it up a notch. So I'm kind of glad we had the time to do that.
Yeah, it can kind of go one of two ways, right? Like if you have a lot of long time to do something, I feel like you can either, spend that like Leonard Cohen writing Closing Time apparently took him like 8 years or something like that just to write that one song, and like it took him 10 years to write Hallelujah or something like that. Or then like you spend so much time on something, it's never perfect, and you'll never end up putting it out. Do you know what I mean?
You can beat it to death for sure. And I've been guilty of that. There's a funny saying people say records are never finished, they're abandoned.
Yeah.
There is kind of some truth to that, that you almost have to let it go or give up or whatever. But I think we had enough time to take it where we wanted to take it.
All this time in, how do you balance, or do you balance, a sort of fan expectation versus fulfillment of the band?
Yeah, that's kind of the mind balance, right? Like, because you don't want to get in that headspace to go, okay, well, geez, are the fans going to like this? Because that's really not a good place. Because then you're second guessing yourself, right? You kind of got to go with what you feel and your gut is right. And but in reality, you do kind of write something and go, I wonder how that'll go over, right? So it's kind of this weird thing, this battle with yourself. You almost want to go back to when nobody listened to it. No, before anybody knew who we were. That's kind of like your truest self in terms of your band. So you're kind of trying to get to that point where the outside world isn't part of the equation.
I've heard that before, hey, that like the great irony of success in the music industry is that you're always just trying to go back to before you were successful.
Right. Because you're in a different point. When once you have a song that does well, it's very hard to not self-reference because you go, oh, well, that worked. Let's do something like that. When that was actually a product of all your influences before, you have to go back to where that stuff came from. And look, we all change as people, so you can't. That's just not possible anymore. So you have to just kind of go with it and go where your musical spirit takes you to what feels right.
And I guess a band is good as opposed to a solo artist. Like a band is good for keeping you honest about that kind of stuff.
For sure, it's good to bounce things off each other, to have other people in the room and stuff. That's important.
I was listening to this record, and I think there's something about listening to it during the pandemic that I was sort of, looking for references to the world sort of crumbling and everything falling apart, and you hear that a little bit in the Let the Bad Times Roll. But then when I was reading interviews with you and doing some research going into this interview, I heard you say a couple of times, like, I never want to feel like we're telling people what to do. I don't necessarily want this to feel like a political record. I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about that.
For sure. I mean, we've definitely seen our share of bands growing up, and when it felt preachy, that was always a real turnoff, right? But at the same time, we wanted have a discussion about what's going on in the world, right? And I think there are a lot of things that we can agree on that are wrong with what's going on right now, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. So we kind of try to focus on that, point out what's going on, and sort of be observers rather than telling people this is how you should feel about something or this is what you should do. I think it's more interesting that way.
Is that something you've thought about, like in terms of, again, going back to when you first start out and no one's really listening to you, but when you're a songwriter that has a really big audience in front of you, do you think about that responsibility?
I don't like to use the word responsibility. I think that's kind of an unfair burden to put on an artist.
I understand. Yeah.
That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. But I think it's just how I feel. I mean, we're here to make music for for people. I hope that our music creates enjoyment, right? That'd be the idea. So why do stuff that is going to deliberately alienate certain groups of people? That doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And I think even when I go back to like the kids aren't all right, like, early Offspring, I mean, these were songs that talked about, yeah, that the world was sort of crumbling, but I felt like you were right there with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe in some ways those are more social issues rather than political issues, I guess. And I mean, the personal side of it is what makes it important and what makes it interesting to me to write about.
I want to play a little bit of one of the moments on this record that I was a bit surprised by. Take a listen to this.
And it feels like heaven's so far away. And it feels like the world has grown cold now that you've gone away.
I'm speaking with Dexter Holland of The Offspring about their new album, Let the Bad Times Roll. And you're hearing a little bit of the song Gone Away, Requiem, which is a stripped-down version of their big hit song Gone Away. Tell me a little bit about recording this.
Yeah, it started out kind of by accident, I guess. We were playing we're on tour playing a live show where it's a lot of, bang, bang, bang. And we thought it'd be nice to create a moment just to let people breathe for a second in the middle of the set. So we thought about adapting a song to something that was a little quieter. And this song seemed natural to do that with. So we kind of just had an idea for a little vocal piano moment in the middle of the set and thought this song especially makes sense because the lyrics are saying something that we want people to hear. And this kind of makes the vocal feel a little more personal, I think. So that was about as far as we thought about it. But when we started playing it live, the reaction was really instantaneous, where people were putting their lighters up and we're getting comments, and on social media people are saying, where can I get a recorded copy of this piano version of the song? So it was almost an art, the audience demanded it, I guess.
And does it feel different when you sing it slowed down to you? Like, do you hear the song differently?
It feels more personal to me, for sure.
How do you mean?
I just the nature of, how you frame a song, the musical context of a song can make things feel different. I think in the original version, it's almost a bit of rage maybe at that this person is gone, where this feels, I don't know if the word is heartfelt or whatever, but I can see it in the audience and stuff. It's really, it's great in that it seems to be reaching people.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean by, like, there's a rage in the original version, and then it's funny with the exact same words that and just a little bit of a change, that rage can become something completely different,
See, you just said it better than I did. That's the idea. The same lyric, just in a little bit different view framework. It can feel very different.
I was reading your Reddit AMA, and it was interesting to see so many people bring up Smash as this defining album for them. It became the biggest selling independent album of all time. What do you hear when you listen back to that album?
I mean, I'm proud of it for a number of reasons. Of course, it's the album that got us known, even though it was our third album. It's the one that, people started to know us by. I'm proud of the fact that it was an independent record and that it is going to go down. I don't think people are selling too many records anymore. So that title of the biggest independent selling record will probably remain. And I'm proud of the fact that it came out on a label where there just wasn't the money behind it to make it work. It had to stand on its own. It had to succeed on its own merits, which it did. So I'm proud of all those things. When I listen to it now, I mean, I feel like the songs hold up. I feel like they're good songs, and that makes me feel good listening to it back now. There's definitely things when you look back early in your career that you kind of, cringe a little bit, about stuff. I remember there was a funny quote where I think it was Cat Stevens actually said, he goes, you look back at those old songs, it's almost like an embarrassing photograph of you when you were younger. And I thought that was a great analogy.
Was there a moment when that record came out, like I said, it was your third album, was there a moment you can remember that you went, oh, like this is getting big. Life's about to get different?
Yeah, I mean, there's several moments that was kind of successive. I mean, getting played on the radio in Los Angeles, that was a big one for sure. Going to MTV, of course, was another big one. But maybe the one that might have hit home the most is, I was living with my girlfriend in a small apartment in Orange County back then. In these apartments, like if you're washing the dishes, you had a window in front of you, but the apartment across from you would be facing you, their kitchen window, right? So I went to the kitchen one day and this guy's on his cordless phone in the next apartment, but we're close enough that I can hear him. And he's going, dude, I'm looking at him right now. So that was when it kind of hit me like, oh, wow. Okay. This is different than it was a couple months ago.
And that's when you decided to buy curtains.
Yeah, curtains. Yeah, curtains are in order.
Curtains and blinds. Speaking of that album, I do want to play, well, sort of come out and play, but a song you slightly altered recently for a very pressing issue. Take a listen to this.
Hey, man, you're talking back to me. Take him out. You gotta go get vaccinated.
That is an updated come out and play by the Offspring. Dexter Holland is my guest. Tell me a little bit about making that.
I know. Now, I just spent all this time telling you that I don't want to tell people what they should do. And then here we are telling people to go get vaccinated.
This
right?
feels a little bit different than how you should vote.
I guess. Yeah, right. Yeah. I went to school for this. I feel like I have a little bit of background in it. And I do think it's a good idea. And whatever you think about all this, the truth is that we're not going to get back to normal until people get vaccinated. That's just the reality of it. So why don't we just get this done with so that we can all go to shows again and do the things that we love to do. And that was kind of the reasoning behind it. And I do feel like it's the right thing to do. And I felt strongly enough to put this out. There's been a little bit of a mixed reaction. I was a little more surprised than I thought it would be.
I was going to ask about that. Like, what's the reaction been?
Yeah, mixed. There were a lot of people that were actually surprisingly kind of angry about it.
How's that for you?
But, that's where we're at. I mean, we are in, maybe the most divisive period in our nation's history, if not the world's history. And this is kind of par for the course. What's
that like for you as someone who understands the science behind it?
I mean, let's say at a scientific or factual level, it's frustrating. On a personal level, I understand, like, people are unsure about certain things, and there could still be some sort of crazy side effect that we don't know about. I think that's unlikely given how many millions of doses have been administered. But besides that, there's all this conflicting information on the internet. And again, another sign of our times where people are getting just bombarded with all this conflicting information, and it's hard to know what to do sometimes.
Well, and I want to talk about sort of the good side of this. And I think it's a good time to mention that you have a PhD in molecular biology. I believe your specific area of expertise is viruses, which is very topical right now, but not necessarily the vaccines we're talking about right now. But I think it is worth mentioning the incredible advancement in molecular biology and the global impact it's been having in terms of getting these vaccines developed quickly. What's that been like for you?
For sure. It's a great time for all this kind of stuff. Molecular biology might mean genetics, or I'll call it biotech sometimes. I think that term molecular biology throws people, but I did focus on viruses, and I think it's very interesting how all that stuff works. With the vaccine, I know there's a lot of belief out there that, well, these were developed too quickly. Now, I think part of the story that's not out there is that there was a whole platform of technology that's been developed over the last 5 years or so that was happening. They were working on this, the mRNA vaccine. They were working on this for flu vaccines over the last really almost 10 years, but the last 5 years. So this great technology happened to be, right on deck when this happened. And that's what allowed it to be quickly adapted to the coronavirus. So it's not as quick as everyone thinks.
As someone who has spent some time looking into HIV, how exciting is this new advancement, this tech that they were ready for you?
Well, it's exciting. It's always funny to say this is exciting for the world of pandemics, right? It sounds like a contradiction in terms, but what is great about this particular technology, the mRNA technology, is they think that they can actually, if something else comes along, they can take the new bad virus and insert it like a cassette right into the existing platform, and you can get a new type of vaccine very quickly. That's what they're going for. And they even think that they might be able to adapt it to other bad things that are in your body, like cancer. And that's still down the road a little bit. But the idea that this may allow vaccines to be developed much more quickly in the future is really is exciting.
Do you have science buddies who don't know you from the Offspring? Like, do you have a science buddies who are like, yeah, I know Dexter. Doesn't he play in a band or something? Like, do you have this other life to them?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they all eventually figure it out, I guess. And sometimes people talk about it, and sometimes if that's not where their interests are, we don't talk about it at all.
Yeah, I remember talking to Greg Graffin about this, and he was like, yeah, sometimes my students know that I'm in a cool punk band, and sometimes I'm just their prof, you know?
Yeah. I say that's more of a faculty kind of thing in my case.
Well, how do you, and I know this is sort of a vague question, but how do you sort of balance a life in punk rock and a life in science?
I mean, it was really important for me to get the degree. I don't want to belabor this because, I mean, a PhD, I'm really proud of it as an accomplishment, but it is a step. It's a stepping stone. I don't practice this. I don't do it for a living. So I'm certainly not an expert, but I'm glad that I did it because I really, in all honesty, and not to sound cheesy, but I wanted to make a contribution, and I would like to continue to do this in some part-time way, maybe a project or something. I'm trying to figure out how to get a couple papers done this year. So it's a side project for me, basically.
Has this year been being off the road as sad as it's been, and how hard it's been, especially for a band like the Offspring, which is not just the members of the band, but is for a team that tours with them, an entire ecosystem that's been off the road, but hasn't been an opportunity to address more that other side of your life?
Well, there's so much going on in that world, just keeping up with the reading has taken up a lot of the time. Because we've put out a record, we've been actually really busy, switching to a different kind of busy.
Yeah, right. But it's just a lot, Dexter. I've always been really interested by this ever since I found out about you. Like I knew your band, of course, and I've been a fan of your band for a really long time. But it wasn't until a few years ago that I figure out all the other things that you do. Be it the molecular biology, be it being a pilot, being the hot sauce company. Does having such a diverse range of interests help you when you're in a touring rock band?
I know I should take it easy, huh? I don't think I'd say I get bored easily, but there's just, there's a lot of cool shit out in the world. Why not, take in as much of it as you can. So I think, look, I love touring because I love playing the shows, and I love that hour of the day for sure. The rest of it, can be tedious sometimes. So it is good to have other interests that you can turn your attention to, stuff you can do on the road.
Where does that come from? Like, was that how you were brought up to like be into a bunch of different things and kind of, stay busy?
Yeah, I think I just always wanted to do everything.
Yeah, man, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember a specific moment or
No. I'm always curious about it because there are people who just, I think maybe what I'm really saying is that I do this job and sometimes I go, oh man, maybe if I could do this, maybe I could go back to school, maybe I'd do this. Like I love when I hear about you. There's a great goalie for the Montreal Canadiens named Ken Dryden, who while he was a goalie and won the Stanley Cup, also was going to an Ivy League school. You know what I mean? Like when I hear these stories, I always find them really inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of just thinking about it right now. I mean, I guess I was pretty much kind of always a math and science kind of kid growing up, but I loved Kiss, like that was really interesting to me and exciting to me. And that eventually grew into, loving the Sex Pistols and the Ramones, and kind of just pursuing that interest. It seems totally different from an interest in math and science, but they're just two parts of my personality that I like. So I don't know, flying's kind of a math and science kind of thing in a way. It's much more visceral, I guess, but it kind of just goes with the two sides of the right brain and the left brain part of anyone's personality, I guess. Yeah,
Brian May too, right? Doesn't Brian May have
astrophysics?
Astrophysics and plays in Queen.
Yeah. So he beat me. That's for sure. That's for sure. I have yet to talk to him about that. I met him once. He was like the nicest guy I ever met. He was fantastic, but I haven't had a chance to talk to him in depth about that. I can't wait to meet these people because I feel like, maybe can I finally be in the club, Hey, Brian, I got a PhD too,
Well, I got good news for you. He's a really big Canadian public radio listener.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is your ticket right here. Dexter,
that would be great.
It's been nice to talk to you.
You too. Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Dexter Holland is the singer and songwriter of The Offspring. Their new album, Let the Bad Times Roll, is out everywhere now.